Thanks. We commissioned a survey among adult smokers in 6 important markets across Asia. Why? We wanted to try to gauge just what real consumers think about smoking, harm reduction, and e-cigarette use in general, and what they would like to see done. So I'm now going to run through the main conclusions of our survey as regards Hong Kong. Let me just tell you that all the data, the entire survey, will be available to you at the end of this presentation. So by all means take notes, but don't feel you have to take down every single number. And we will also be able to answer questions afterwards. We chose Ipsos to carry out the research for us. It's one of the biggest and certainly one of the leading global opinion poll and market research companies. And since this was the first major survey we've commissioned, we just spent a long time listening to them and taking their opinions on how to do it and what to ask. The sampling universe, it's very important to say that we only polled adult smokers in Hong Kong. Online interviewing, which is standard policy these days, and Ipsos gave us a lot of help, both from their Hong Kong office and their global headquarters in Europe, as regards phrasing all the questions and statements to ensure complete neutrality. As you can see, the fieldwork wasn't completed till less than 4 weeks ago, so this is very much a current survey of smoker opinion here in Hong Kong. The first thing we asked was whether smokers had ever used an e-cigarette. You can see here that although a majority haven't, 26% of smokers have actually had a go with e-cigarettes. They're either regular or occasional users, but the majority haven't tried them. Whether or not they have tried them, they do seem to know that they exist. I mean, a very clear majority of 89% say they have recently heard something about e-cigarettes. Just 9% of Hong Kong smokers haven't heard anything about e-cigarettes recently. Interestingly, this holds true right across the demographic boundaries, and just about everybody, whether they're high or low earners, high or low education, or young and old, the awareness factor seems to be about the same. But although they know of the existence of e-cigarettes, very few people are what they would say familiar with them. As you can see, only 7% actually regard themselves as being very familiar with what an e-cigarette is. The vast majority, 92%, come into that category of more or less sort of not very familiar. So in these circumstances, you might think it's not surprising, but we found that more than 1/3 of Hong Kong smokers don't even know if e-cigarettes are legal. 56% reckon they are legal, but 36%, which is quite a high number, don't know whether e-cigarettes are legal. And as you might be able to see here, if you read it, even more than 1/4 of the people who do use e-cigarettes, either regularly or occasionally, 28% of them aren't sure whether they are doing so legally or not. But there's very substantial agreement that smokers should have the right to access information about less harmful alternatives. The statement we put to them for their agreement or not was, if a new product is scientifically proven to have the potential to reduce the risk of smoking as compared to conventional cigarettes, adult smokers should have the right to access this information. And as you can see, a very clear majority, 87%, say clearly, yes, they do have the right, or should have the right, to access this information about less harmful alternatives to smoking. Indeed, just 9% disagreed with it, which is not really a lot of people. Then we asked whether, and here's the statement exactly, it would be wrong for government to prevent or delay the introduction of less harmful alternatives to cigarettes for adult smokers. Don't forget, all of this is by and for adult smokers. We are not promoting and we oppose any youth usage of any of these products. So would it be wrong for government to prevent or delay it? 62% say yes, it would be wrong. It would be wrong to prevent or delay legalizing less harmful alternatives to cigarettes. It's a little bit interesting that it's actually a higher rate of agreement among those with tertiary degree or higher, among higher income groups, and the figures go up to 67 and 68% respectively. Indeed, an even clearer majority, 75%, say the government should actually encourage smokers to switch to less harmful products. Again, the statement was, through tax and regulatory policies, the government should encourage adult smokers to switch to less harmful alternatives to cigarettes and ensure they are not used by youth. In other words, smokers in Hong Kong, quite clearly, by a quite large majority, want government to make less harmful products available and tax them reasonably, as well as ensuring they're not made available under any circumstances to youth, which is something Fact Asia completely agrees with. You'll see that the younger adults, 18 to 29s, and the higher income groups, and those with a higher education, agree even more strongly with this statement. In each case, that's 82% compared to the 75% overall. Now, from these statements and the responses of adult smokers throughout Hong Kong, we can see a clear picture starting to emerge. So then we asked them to agree or disagree whether e-cigarettes represent a positive alternative to conventional cigarettes. And again, there seems to be quite a clear majority, in this case 2 to 1. 63% overall of smokers saying they see them as a positive alternative, which would enable them to reduce their risk of death and disease associated with conventional cigarettes and smoking. Finally, we asked smokers if they would consider switching to e-cigarettes if they were legal, if they met quality standards and safety standards, and were conveniently available. And it seems to us really quite clear. 2/3 of smokers in Hong Kong would consider switching to e-cigarettes if they were allowed to. Again, 2 to 1, more than 2 to 1 in fact. They want to be able to switch, they want the choice to switch to less harmful products. And that if they're obviously legalized, but if they meet quality and safety standards, that's quite important, and we may come back to that later. And if they're conveniently available to adults. 2/3 would consider switching to e-cigarettes if they were legal. And ladies and gentlemen, making e-cigarettes legal, ensuring they meet quality standards and making them available to adults only is precisely what Fact Asia will be recommending to tomorrow when we make a submission to the Legislative Council just down the road. And at this stage, I'd just like to note our congratulations to the Legislative Council on choosing to seek more information on this topic rather than to try and legislate one way or the other without the background information. It's a good choice for Legislative Council to make. Now, as I said, we'll be making all the data available after the meeting, but in the meantime, I think H and I will be happy to answer any questions you've got.